Renaud. And he wanted to know from Dr. Renaud, have you heard of the mycoplasma, doctor? Dr. Renaud said, what? And Bill said, have you heard of the mycoplasma? And he said, is that the mycoplasma pneumoniae? He said, I've heard of it. He said, it causes mild pneumonia, but nothing more. And Bill said, well, how about the other species? How about mycoplasma fermentans? Have you ever looked at it? What? Have you ever looked at mycoplasma fermentans? No, never heard. And then Bill asked, do you know Dr. Byron Hyde, who was going to be one of our speakers but had to change his schedule? He, in Canada, is the editor of the first and very authoritative book on chronic fatigue syndrome. It's a very heavy book with contributions by 64 well-established research people. And this book is a very, very important book for anybody studying chronic fatigue syndrome. Well, the government's expert witness, Dr. Renaud, said, no, I never heard of Dr. Hyde. He never heard of Dr. Hyde. And then we showed him Dr. Hyde's textbook. I don't have it here, but we showed him that textbook. Oh, no, I never saw that. He's all excited about the fact that there's a big textbook on chronic fatigue syndrome, and he didn't even know about it. And he lived in Ottawa, and so did Dr. Byron Hyde. So the information is not only being kept from the public to a very, very great degree, or misrepresented, as it often is, but to a very great degree it is kept from the medical community itself. And you can put that to the test. And we'll give you a little test to do with your doctor the next time you see them. Well, I can now, doctor. Ask your doctor next time you see him, doctor, what is the probable or important pathogen involved in Alzheimer's disease? And he will probably say something to the effect of, gosh, I don't know. If I knew, I'd be a millionaire. They think in terms of money, you see. I'd be a millionaire. But nobody knows. There's no known cause, there's no known cure. Well, wait a minute, doctor. I've got a patent here from the United States government by Dr. Shai-Ching Lo of the American Registry of Pathology and head of the U.S. government's biological warfare research and so on. And that patent says, patented in Washington, D.C., that people ill with mycoplasmal infections will be people who have been diagnosed as. Now, okay, here's the people, they go to doctors and they're not feeling well for this, that, or another reason. And they talk to the doctor and the doctor makes a diagnosis. Dr. Shai-Ching Lo, in the patent of the mycoplasma, says that people who are infected with the mycoplasma fermentans will be those who have been diagnosed as having AIDS, or AIDS-related complex, chronic fatigue syndrome, Wegener's disease, sarcoidosis, lupus, cardiovascular diseases, and he names others, and then he says, and even Alzheimer's. Now, why doesn't the doctor know what Dr. Shai-Ching Lo, the principal doctor and researcher in Washington, D.C., has put into a patent? Because the doctor never read it. And when I show them this, they say, oh my goodness. And they begin to puzzle. Case in point, another case in point, is seen in the fact that the United States Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences. Now that is essentially a university for medical doctors in the U.S. military. When they go to the Uniformed Services University of Health Sciences, they have a whole section of their course, and I've got the course outline here, if you want to take a look at it. They have a whole section of their course on the mycoplasma and its hazards to people. And yet, the average civilian doctor doesn't know what a mycoplasma is and how it works. Now that's the average. There are the exceptions, but they are very exceptional. And that four-part summary of the course dealing with the disease microorganism known as a mycoplasma, while, as I say, most universities have no mention of it in their courses of study for medical doctors. I want to say a word about our research methodology, because I, as an 81-year-old retiree, assisted by my son Bill, in preparing this paper and in doing our research, it has been based upon 10 years of studying degenerative diseases. Now, this doesn't compare with the time and dedication of many of you to the subject, but that is my experience, that is my background. 10 years ago, I began the study of chronic fatigue syndrome, and it led me into a mirror image of chronic fatigue, AIDS, and that led me into the mycoplasma, and that led me into rheumatoid arthritis when I saw Dr. Clark's book, Why Arthritis, and it led me into many other diseases. An article by Dr. Shai-Ching Luo and several associates on how the mycoplasma influences the development of cancer. Yet I've talked to doctors about cancer, and they don't know of any role the mycoplasma may play. But I've got a copy of Dr. Shai-Ching Luo's paper on that. I have relied primarily, as I have said, upon the original peer-reviewed research reports by eminent scientists and published in peer-reviewed professional journals, and all sources are available from me for examination at a nominal charge for photocopying and mailing. When the occasional exception to this rule is made, it is only to include secondary research by such careful and thorough researchers as Edward Hooper in his book The River, and Hilary Johnson in her book Mosler's Web, as well as certain other ones. And I do want to say at this point that I have been greatly assisted in my research by my son William, who is a great aid to me, and without his help I wouldn't be able to do the work I'm doing. And I want to thank you, Bill, for that. Now, to part one of this three-part paper. The principal cause of most degenerative diseases. There it is there, the mycoplasma. That's what I say, and we'll just examine why it is I say that. The principal cause of many, if indeed not most, or even all, of the degenerative diseases is a species of microorganism called the mycoplasma. Although the mycoplasma species by themselves present in victims as various diseases, quite often, or maybe perhaps more often than not, they cause diseases by acting as cofactors to one or more other pathogens, carried perhaps by bacteria or viruses or whatever. Such co-action consists of their capacity to reduce the level of natural immunity to disease. We all have a system of disease resistance which has been developed over the centuries of human existence. And the mycoplasma has the capability, upon entering human cells, of causing those cells to lose their ability to turn away microorganisms that would do harm. To reduce the level of natural immunity to disease acquired over time by living organisms, including humanity. And important, and I've already referred to this, a leading document is that cited in the U.S. patent number 5,242,820, the pathogenic mycoplasma. And that is available for you to see if you wish to have a look at it. It is also to be noted that Dr. Luo is a critical faculty member of the University Armed Services Health Sciences. And but he's also contributed chapter 13 to this textbook on mycoplasmas. It is a very important textbook on mycoplasmas, and Dr. Luo contributed chapter 13, and it's on AIDS, chapter 13 talks about the role of the mycoplasma in AIDS. And yet, where's HIV in all this? Now, a question arises. Why is it that the mycoplasma is deemed by the U.S. military to be worthy of extensive study, while at the same time it is largely exposed to benign neglect or even given outright contempt by medical schools preparing graduates who will be responding to illnesses in civilian populations? Two levels of medicine. The answer to this question cannot be attributed to the claim by the latter civilian medical professionals that the mycoplasma is not important to human health. To challenge this facetious statement, we must quote Dr. Lowe's patent itself. And he says right in his patent, and I quoted part of it by memory, and I'll give it to you verbatim. Some of these patients who are infected with mycoplasma fermentans will be patients who have been diagnosed as having AIDS or AIDS-related complex, chronic fatigue syndrome, Wegener's disease, sarcoidosis, respiratory distress syndrome, Kabuchi's disease, autoimmune diseases such as collagen vascular disease and lupus, and chronic debilitating diseases such as Alzheimer's disease. In part 2 of this paper, we will add to Dr. Lowe's list with evidence that cancer, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, Lyme disease, and amyotrophic lateral sclerosis also have a significant mycoplasmal involvement. Now, definition of a mycoplasma. The definition of mycoplasma that best seems to cover their unique nature is that of Shmuel Razim in his contribution to Mandelon's text, Mycoplasmas. And he says, mycoplasmas can be defined rather clearly as a group of eubacteria phylogenetically related to gram-positive bacteria, but retaining the rather unique position as the smallest self-replicating prokaryotes devoid of cell walls. In other words, they're just a particle of DNA without a cell wall. It is worthy to note that the mycoplasmas lack a cell wall, which tends to make them more difficult to isolate and at the same time increases their ability to insinuate themselves into other organisms, including human cells. It is also to be noted that they appear to be descended from antecedent bacteria. Of this, Razim suggests that the theme underlining the current evolutionary scheme of mycoplasmas is that of degenerative evolution from walled bacteria. In other words, you start with a walled bacteria and something happens to it, and this is a step backwards evolutionary-wise, but the mycoplasma acts as a living organism capable of self-replication, but only very difficultly manifesting itself. In other words, mycoplasmas appear to be descended from bacteria and hence can be assumed to bring with them at least some of the characteristics of their predecessor bacteria. We shall therefore begin our study with certain species of the bacteria from which the pathogenic mycoplasma, fermentans being one of the species, as patented by Dr. Lowe, is most likely to be degeneratively evolved. And that is Brucella, malatensis, and abortus. Now, on last Thursday evening, as I was working in my study, I had a phone call from a lady in Ottawa, Canada. And she said that her daughter had become ill with some very, very peculiar disease, ages, just signs and symptoms and so on. And the doctors in Ottawa General Hospital and other places were very, very puzzled by her. So they took a sample of her